How's it going, everyone? This is Dean from the Studio Department of the Seachem Public Library, and today we'll be doing another Lightroom tutorial. So let's get to it. So as you can see, I got my first two photos that I'm going to use already for import and ready to use. And today we're going to be doing more color mixing, color grading, and I'm going to be checking more of the advanced effects to do for Lightroom. So as we go on the first picture here, we're basically, as you can see in this one, you can see that some of the clouds are obviously a little bright, and the building itself, it was taken during like maybe like afternoon time, and there was a lot of bright lights, and especially from the sky, of course, and it made the shadows unbearable at times. So, we're gonna see if we could either darken it up or lighten it up a little bit, and go from there. So at first, I'll show you some of my favorite settings to use for my favorite effects. So first, we'll check the light, and we're definitely going to give it a little more exposure just to brighten up some of the trees, but we're going to end up trying to lower that sky, of course. So that's why this contrast will really have to boost. The exposure and the contrast is good because, kind of just gives you a contrast between the dark and the light. And then the exposure is really nice too, because it just basically could just brighten your photo on aspects that you need brightened. So we'll go through the light, and then we'll go through the color, and then we'll go through a little mixing and a little color grading, and then if we have to do any details, we'll go from there. So now we'll look at the highlights, and I don't think I have to change it too much. Go through the highlights, and I'm probably going to have to darken it a little bit. So the shadows are kind of taking over a little bit, so I definitely want to lower that just quite a bit. Definitely lower my whites a little. Definitely lower my blacks a little bit because they're on a little bit too much. And the whites, definitely want that a little darker. Now the colors, it depends what you want to mess with. I mean, you can see that there's a big brown, white, light blue, and obviously this yellow-blue color. So those oranges and the yellows we really have to look out for, and that's really it for color-wise. So we'll look at some of the blues too. So I added a little bit more saturation to it. I'm going to lower a little bit because it looks like it's coming out too much. And then I'm going to check the orange and the yellow, and then go from there. So I'll definitely add a little bit more orange on the saturation luminance from that previous picture. Now I'm going to just check any more effects and clarity and dehaze, of course. You want to make it a little bit more clear. Okay, so basically I just added a little bit more sharpening here, added a little bit more noise reduction so it evens out with some of the dehaze that I used, the vignette I used. I used a little bit more clarity and texture to bring out more spots in this, and came out pretty good. There's a couple ways I could have made the sky lower, and definitely could have I definitely could have made the sky lower. I definitely could have added maybe a little bit more texture to the tree, which I'll do right now. Mess around with the yellows and the greens. So I added out a little bit more yellow, and comparing to the first to the second, as we will do in a second, looks pretty good. So now if you look at from the first to the second, I would say not too shabby. We definitely messed with the sky. We could have made it a little lower. Um, we definitely could have made the sky a little lower, which I just wanted to show you how it would be like to make that really blue sky and see what it looks like. But the sky looks really nice. The building, the texture and clarity, and the haze definitely helped a little bit. As you can see with this tree, the hues, the saturation, and the luminance definitely did its works, and definitely the detail, the texture, the haze on not only the building but a little bit of the concrete here, and some of the trees and below the tree, which was honestly much needed because it basically just gives you that added feature of more clarity and more texture in a photo. So we're all done with that picture. I'll show you a little bit more how to get involved with the second picture, and then we'll wrap it up. So now this is my second picture. I'll show you some more advanced textures and some advanced effects and stuff as well. And for this, so the exposure is pretty good. There's a couple dark spots, so I'll raise that. The contrast, you're gonna want to move out and match some of the lights and the darks, and you'll see in the middle too. It definitely meets together as you just look what it does. Especially those middle colors and the blackness of his shirt and stuff, and those cars in the middle. The highlights, will add a little bit, but nothing crazy. But I don't want the whites to burst too much, so that's going to be the problem. I think it might be better to go with. Depending on that white black building, the darker view. But let's try to keep going a lighter view and see what it is from there. So the temperature. So we'll just mess around with the temperature, the texture, clarity, and all that. So after messing around with all the hues, saturation, temperatures, and the color, came out with we went with more of a vintage look, but I think it came out pretty nice, and that's going to be it, guys. Thanks for tuning in.